Hi, and welcome to day 12 here at TorahFamilyLiving.com. We have been having a great time here looking at scriptures and writing them out. This month we are looking at the topic of joy and having a cause of joy. Today we're looking at another Old Testament prophet, which has absolutely been phenomenal as we explore these Old Testament prophets and what they have to say. We are in Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 17 through 19. 17 through 19. Here we go. Though the fig tree does not blossom, and there is no fruit on the vine, the yield of the olive has failed, and the fields brought forth no food. The flock has been cut off from the fold, and there is no herd in the stalls. Yet I exult in Yahweh, I rejoice in the Elohim of my deliverance. Yahweh the Master is my strength, and He makes my feet like those of deer, and makes me walk on my high places. To the chief singer with my stringed instruments. So if you have a stringed instrument, take it out and start singing out these words. When you start reading this, you can look at it and you go, this is a bummer, dude. Oh, woe is me. There's no blossoms. It's been too dry. And there's been no rain to bring forth the crops. And so there's no blossom and there's no fruit on the vine. And the yield of the olive, there is no yield of the olive. There's nothing. And there's no cattle. There's nothing. It just... everything seems to be unprosperous. Everything seems to be failing. Everything is doom and gloom. In other words, things are not going normal. Things are difficult. These are hard times. These are the enslavements of the Israelites when Moses came and went to Pharaoh and said, set my people free. This is what Yahweh says. And he says, not only am I not setting them free, but now they have to get their own hay, and they have to they got to get their own water. We ain't help provide them with anything, but we expect the same return of making the bricks. And the slavery got more difficult and harder. And here's the attitudes of the children of Israel, just sinks even lower. And it's in these moments where it's very easy to go, woe is me. Everything looks bad. And depending on really where you are at physically, because if you're not getting nutrients in your body, if you don't have a good balanced chemistry in your body, if you don't have a good diet, if you're not getting good sleep, if all these things that balance out your life, you start to have a chemical breakdown in your body in which affects you mentally, and you really slip into depression, and the woe is me gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And this is the state that I see Habakkuk talking about here, is that everything is in chaos. And yet he establishes that even in this chaos and in all of this mayhem and all of this time of hardness, talk about going through hard times. Our Israeli brethren during the Holocaust, I mean, how horrific that was. And we must never forget about that. And we must always keep that in mind and remember what they went through. Not because we want to remember the difficult times, but remember that difficult times can come and we never want it to happen again. But tough times do come. And when they come, what's important is how we put our state of mind and how we put our best foot forward during this time, and what does it look like. Because even during these times, this is what we're supposed to do. And we see this reiterated in the New Testament as the apostles tells us to give thanks in everything. So here's what Habakkuk declares out. Yet, all of this stuff happening, I'm having a difficult time. I lost my job. Yet, there's no food this week. Yet, there's no rain. Yet, our cattle are dead. Yet, in spite of all these things, I exalt in Yahweh. In other words, I'm not just lifting praises and gratitude to Him. I'm coming in right relationship. Yet I will exalt Yahweh. I am becoming actively involved in going, I know these things are not going right, and I prayed and I've asked for a different outcome, but they haven't come. Hello, Job. Job went through some very, 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 very difficult times. I can't imagine losing everything, including all of my children. And maybe his children, some of his children had spouses. Maybe he had grandchildren as well. It doesn't tell us. It just says all of his children were destroyed, and all of his crops and all of his cattle and his herds were taken away. And yet he didn't deny Yah. He still said there has to be a reason, and he looked to God. This is the kind of attitude, this is the kind of persona that we are supposed to have. Yet I will exalt in Yahweh. I added the word will because that's what I'm hoping we will do. I exalt in Yahweh. I rejoice in the Elohim of my deliverance. Even though I may not see my deliverance, I know that there's a hope and a joy that deliverance will come. Yahweh the Master is my strength, and He makes my feet like those of deer and makes me walk in my high places. In other words, when things are looking down and things are looking difficult and looking hard, what we need to do is pause and take time and look up and start exalting the name of He who created all things. To look to our Yah and to know that in Him we are so wonderfully blessed. I heard a gentleman give an example not long ago, Myron Golden, and he gave this example. He said, when you're in the midst of things and you look at it, they look so big. But if you were to be able to launch off the earth and get further and further and further away, or if you've ever flown in an airplane and you look down when you're up in the airplane and you're looking out the window and you look down and you see all these homes and they look so small. It looks like you take up a whole neighborhood and put it in the palm of your hand. They're so small. And as long as we go up, if we exalt the name of the Father, if we will put our hope and trust in Him, all of these situations become smaller because we're not focusing on them, we're focusing on Him. And in that moment, we start to experience the joy of Yahweh, where we can say, in all things I can give thanks, and be like Paul and Silas in the prison when all the difficulty comes, and they can sing psalms and hymns because they weren't looking at the change, they weren't looking at the beating that they had received, they weren't looking at the ridicule and the mocking that they got from the crowd and from the religious leaders that should have been backing them, but instead were mocking them and were the ones that were causing these difficult times to come on Paul and Silas. And in that moment, they refused to look at that. They looked up and they exalted through hymns and through prayer the very one that was sustaining them and keeping them. And they were filled with Yah's joy and had a sustaining peace and shalom that overcame them. And they were able to be even of greater witness for Yahweh. And that's what God wants to do for you and for me. So I pray this has been a blessing to you. Remember, when things look tough, look up and give praise and exalt the name of our Father. I hope this has encouraged you. Blessings.